Surrounded by the boundless pale gold like water and fog, Wang Zishuan woke up from the state of chaos. As he regained consciousness, the pale gold that filled the space became thick and viscous, and slowly pulled out a human figure. The engravings are layered and disordered, making people feel like they are thinking upside down and acting out of order at a glance, and he looks very dazed. The surrounding pale gold began to surge, and a door shining with starlight was outlined above the space. Seeing this door, Wang Zishuan suddenly surged with anger and unwillingness, and an inexplicable force drove him to rush towards the door of light. However, as he moved, the door of light seemed to be illusory all of a sudden. The phantoms of countless layers of doors shrouded him, collided with the pale golden water, shattered, and the little stars fell into the turbulent pale golden ocean. It seemed after receiving some invisible order, the pale golden ocean calmed down, and the debris of starlight floated on the sea surface, shimmering with a little light. Before touching the door, Wang Zishuan stopped and said to himself, "What's the matter? Where is this? Why am I here?" Wang Zishuan began to think hard, his spirituality poured out, and the memory poured into his mind like a torrent. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Zishuan woke up again. Ah! It turns out that I am the unfortunate old days of the son of chaos. No, I'm not. I'm a traveler, I'm someone outside the book of the high-dimensional universe, I'm Wang Zishuan. I'm not the biggest unlucky person in the mystery who was deceived by the old silver coin Tianzun and went bankrupt, but also was imprisoned and sold himself. Thinking of this, Wang Zishuan couldn't help but want to express his tone with an expression called a tearful smile. However, now that old shame, the son of chaos, Naya, is me. No, I feel like it's going to crack when I think about it. No, I have to find a way, I have to go out, the earth is too dangerous, I want to go back to space. After calming down, Wang Zishuan began to figure it out. First of all, I am already in the old days. Although I have lost so many characteristics and origin quality due to bad luck, no one will definitely be able to beat me by then, but my personality is still there, no matter what the stars and the old days can do. The so-called knowledge is poisonous, but I am invulnerable to all poisons. After all, I am also a source of great poison. And what Amen, Adam, 008, the existence of the PTSD of the fool, is my younger brother here, as long as the old silver coins do not recover, who am I afraid of? Secondly, I was sealed by the gods in this Rayashiza magic lamp and became a lamp god. I am just a sealed item in the eyes of everyone or gods, although the gods should know that this is a sealed item involving an outer god. Hey, what kind of bad intentions can the sealed artifact have? It just wants to be free. Finally, my current holder is Bernadette, and Bernadette has made a wish twice, which means that the fool may not have fallen, or just woke up. Although, I just need to wait patiently and wait for fate to arrange for us to meet. According to the plotline of the original book, Klein will come to Pi with me and promise to send me back to the stars. But that's the end of the day, the initial barrier has disappeared, and the melee between the old days has begun. What if I, the weak outer who has lost his characteristics and source qualities, are pitted into scum? Also, my body, my soul, has a strong desire for the lost parts, and if I can't get them back, I'll be more and more unable to restrain this crazy sense of aggregation. I don't want to be a twisted and secretive craziness. So, I have to go out, I have to help Lord Fool to be promoted to Lord of Mysteries as soon as possible, and completely suppress the recovery of the old silver coins. According to Mr. K's kind and grateful character, he is definitely willing to repay me, unlock the seal for me, and possibly help me get back the characteristics and disordered country. If I can gain his trust and occupy the side of the earth during the Great War, I should still be able to merge with the fog of uncertainty and become a powerful old one beyond the pillars, free to roam the universe and starry sky. People, no, old days, there are always some dreams, in case they come true. First set a small goal for yourself, leave Bernadette, go to the great fool, be a happy around angel investor, help him, take care of him to grow quickly, and grow into the old days as soon as possible. Hey, it's a little exciting to think about it. Now all the question is how to fool Bernadette to send me out. Misty Sea, Rasha Island, Emerald City. Your Majesty, there's something going on in your collection room, please go and take a look. The maid came in a hurry and saw a tall figure looking out at the blue sea in the distance in the sunset. Your Majesty, Mr. Polly just sent a message saying that your collection room has an abnormal power explosion. He did not dare to leave, and he is still guarding the place. Just in case, please come and take a look. It is good. The long chestnut-haired woman withdrew her gaze, turned around, and looked at the maid. Did Ike say something about the change in the item? No. The maid replied immediately. Queen of Mysteries, Bernadette's Emerald City has a collection of many magical items, some of which come from the harvest of the 5 seas over the years, some are the collection of dawn elements, and more are gifts from her father, especially high-level magic thing. Thinking of her father, Bernadette felt sour in her heart. She resented and missed her father. For many years, Bernadette has been trying to find traces of her father. She wanted to know why her father's personality changed so much in his later years, and whether he might still be alive. Suppressing complicated thoughts, Bernadette came all the way to his collection room, and saw Ike Polly staring at a primitive oil lamp quietly placed on a shelf from a distance like an enemy. It is golden yellow in color and has a slightly old-fashioned feel. It is painted with exquisite and complex lines all over its body. It looks like a small kettle, but a wick sticks out from the spout, and the wick is not lit. It is constantly exuding a majestic force field, making the surrounding air feel a sense of distortion. It was a gift from his father, the sealed artifact numbered 005, the magic wishing lamp. The current situation is that the magic wishing lamp has never existed before, and Bernadette didn't know how to seal it for a while. The wishing lamp is rare, and it is only a level 0 sealed item that will not have much negative effects if it is held but not used. Of course, as long as the holder can resist the temptation of the lamp. But usually the holder cannot resist its temptation. People will have desires, things they want, and wishes to be fulfilled. The lamp can amplify the desire of the holder and confuse the holder to make a wish to it. Once someone makes a wish to it, it will fulfill the wisher's wish in a twisted way, with dire consequences for the wisher, even more painful than death. Therefore, Bernadette usually doesn't keep it by her side. After all, she knows her obsession with her father and may not be able to resist the temptation to make a wish to resurrect her father from the magic lamp. Even if it is not placed by her side, but in the collection room, the magic lamp will often bewitch her to make a wish through dreams, but the distance has weakened the ability to amplify her desires, and it is difficult to shake high-rank powerhouses only by the power of language. Wool. As time passed, the magic lamp that seemed to be going mad gradually quieted down and no longer showed its magic, as if the power leak just now was just an illusion. Bernadette's blue eyes stared at the magic wishing lamp, suddenly becoming deep and distant, as if penetrating reality, watching fate. However, in just 1 second, Bernadette suddenly closed her eyes, her spirituality shook, and blood and tears were left in the corners of her eyes. She suddenly remembered that her father had told her that this magic lamp could not even be broken by a true god. In a short glimpse, Bernadette only saw a thick golden ocean blending with grey mist, with a little bit of starlight twinkling in it, without any prophecy or revelation. Wang Zishuan was thinking about his future plans when he was suddenly inspired and felt that someone was watching his fate. Yo, let me see, who would dare to spy on an old fate? Wang Zishuan let his strength reveal a little beyond the magic lamp, and found Bernadette with blood and tears on his face. Hey, Brother Huang is not strict with his daughters. This line of chaos opened the eyes of the sky. Big Brother Huang insisted on going to the moon because of curiosity. Bernadette dared to spy on the fate of Amun, the king of angels, and the owner of the Castle of Origin. Katlia looked directly at the pseudo on the Castle of Origin. All of them are Master Luo. Just when Bernadette calmed down her spirituality, a familiar voice that she hadn't heard for a long time suddenly sounded in her ears. It was low and slow, round and clear, full of temptation. You're spying on my fate. I can tell you anything you want to know, as long as you make a small wish to me. You know, you can make 10 wishes to me, and it's still far away, it's nowhere near that number. Let me guess, do you want to know your father's secret? Do you want to know if your father is completely dead? Or, you can make a wish to me to have him appear alive in front of you right now. Wang Zishuan imitated the tone and wording that he routinely used to confuse others to make a wish, trying not to let Bernadette find out that he was different from the past. In the past, the lamp just followed the instinct of the beyonder characteristics of the sealed item, and bewitched all possible people to make a wish to it. Sealing time does not help him to break the seal. Wang Zishuan worked hard to weave reasons, using what Bernadette cared about the most. At this time, Bernadette has calmed down her spirituality, restrained her emotions, and listened to this very seductive whisper with a blank face. Are you worried that your wishes will be distorted? Hehe, I can fulfill them normally sometimes, it just depends on my mood. Just now, I'm in a good mood. Just now, I saw my destiny. As long as you can send me to the land of destiny, I can fulfill your one wish, normal, without any distortion, according to your wish. It will not be counted as the holder's wish, which is a reward. Bernadette didn't say a word, suddenly raised her hand, strengthened the spiritual wall of the collection room, then turned around unhurriedly, and walked to the door of the collection room step by step. Wang Dengshen was at a loss for words. You are talking about the price. Bernadette obviously didn't want to talk about ideals with the magic lamp, so Wang Zishuan had to restrain his strength and bring his thoughts back to himself. Bernadette is already a high-ranking powerhouse of Sequence 3. She is very clear that there is nothing to talk about with the sealed artifact, and the sealed artifact does not talk about martial arts. Bernadette can become a big figure in the mysterious world. If she can still be bewitched by the sealed item, she will not live a good life as a saint. This is very difficult to do. I have no credit at all for this magic lamp, and I even have to deduct points. The red glove induction training is a typical case, and I was blocked in this broken collection room by the wall of spirituality. Few people enter. Although there is an esoteric connection with the holder, no matter where she is, I can communicate in my dreams, but Bernadette refuses to pie. I have to change my mind. Bernadette is hard to deceive, I can deceive the people around her, as long as she takes me out and gives me a chance to pick up other people, I can use the power of those people to go where I want to go. Also don't know how the Antigonus notes got him to Tianjin. I can stop bewitching the holder, and then make some noise every day, so that Bernadette doesn't worry about putting me in the collection room. Arides is right, they will increase my protection level whenever I reveal the danger. Bernadette returned to the semi-open room with the best view in the castle. At this time, the setting sun had already fallen into the blue sea, and the place where the water and the sky met, seemed like magma gushing out from the bottom of the sea. A hidden port in the Rhodes Islands, there is a small fishing village near the port. In the afternoon, there were not many adults in the fishing village, especially young adults. Occasionally, women or old people could be seen from the open broken fence gates, or mending worn-out fishing nets, or drying out the sun. Sea goods, the air is full of some pungent fishy smell. In the village, a few bare-bottomed children can be seen running and frolicking. They are full of happy smiles and silently tell outsiders that this is a quiet and peaceful ordinary small fishing village. When Katlia walked in this small fishing village, no one noticed that there was an outsider with a completely different painting style from the small fishing village. As a former wizard, she has a way to hide her figure and hide from the eyes of ordinary people. Walking into a slightly better house in the fishing village, the owner of the house is an old man with a weathered face. Katlia suddenly showed her figure, but the old man was not surprised, his hoarse voice sounded, secret words. Everything counts, Katlia replied. The old man turned and walked towards a hidden corner, where there was a staircase leading to the basement, and there were a lot of sundries stacked next to it. This stair entrance is in a place where normal stairs should not be, and it is usually covered by debris. If you don't pay attention, almost no one can find a hidden entrance here. Katlia followed the old man's instructions and walked down the stairs leading to the basement. The steps are steep, sloping down at a steep angle, pulling a deep distance from the ground. At the end of the stairs is a large basement, which is quietly and elegantly decorated. The bookshelves erected on the side walls are full of books, documents, and various spiritual materials and utensils commonly used in ceremonies. There is even a closed door on the other side of the wall, proving that this basement is connected to other rooms. There is a long table in the middle, the top position is empty, and there are several men and women dressed in different clothes sitting on the side of the table. Katlia didn't greet these people, she chose a seat and sat down. After waiting for a while, people entered the basement one after another and sat on the side of the long table. The door of the basement was suddenly opened, and a middle-aged man with a medium build and an ordinary face walked out. He looks in his 30s, his temperament is calm, his black hair is neatly combed, he is wearing a formal suit that is commonly used in various countries, and he has a scholarly temperament. He has brown eyes, and his eyes are very gentle and completely there is no imposing manner of a high-ranking powerhouse, and he looks more like a university teacher. He is one of the 10 pillars of the ascetic order of Moss, the Saints Thin Burn. He walked to the head of the long table, but did not sit down immediately, and the men and women on both sides of the long table did not stand up to greet him, but everyone fell silent and looked at Sethin silently, as if waiting for the teacher to start lecturing S student. This time, everyone was called here urgently because the leader received a prophecy. A prophecy concerning the future of our Morse ascetic order and the end of the world. Sethin's voice fell, and the already quiet basement became more and more audible. Seth waited for a while and found that no one asked, so she continued, "This prophecy is, a variable comes into the world, and countless fates are rewritten. The revelation the leader got, rules, disorder, dawn. Variable? Rule? What does this mean? Perhaps Her Majesty knows, I have to write to her and tell her." Katlia was calm on the surface, but she couldn't wait to tell the Queen about it. "You are in Intis, in Lone, in various countries on the land, or above the sea, there are some channels, some sources of information. The leader wants us to collect the sudden and strange happenings in various places during this period of time. Yes, unusual things. Variables may be hidden in these inconspicuous little things. You can report the recent incidents that you think are suspicious now." Sethin conveyed the prophecy of the leader of the ascetic order of Morse, and asked important people on the periphery of the organization to provide possible clues. It is said that the Ghost Empire appeared again, and countless pirates flocked from the sea, chasing this ghost ship into the misty sea. A rough voice sounded, his face was rough, his hair was disheveled, and his body was burly. "A person who has been floating above the sea for a long time. There is a change in the Intis military espionage department, but my informant couldn't get a more specific reason." The lady who spoke had a lazy voice, and her long flaxen hair was soft and curly, like rippling waves, long spread out behind her head. In addition, in the near future, the secret order may be secretly looking for an item, or it may be a person. I guessed from the transfer of their lower-level personnel. The lady whose voice was as smooth as hot cocoa provided information about Intis. "There's a newly rising courtesan in the upper ranks of Trier, a very, very attractive lady." When everyone heard the words, they looked sideways, and the speaker quickly added, "I mean, it appeared suddenly, and there were no rumors before. It's very abrupt. Unmarried young ladies usually don't do this, so open." Under the faintly contemptuous eyes of everyone, he coughed lightly and continued, "I have another piece of news here. It seems that the archbishop who defected from the Church of Evernight 2 years ago appeared in Trier." At this moment, a man with a standard lone appearance suddenly answered. The Church of Ivernite's Red Gloves team in Backlund has been frequently mobilized recently. It turned out to be because of this incident. Everyone whispered and discussed the defecting bishop of the Orthodox Church for a while, and then several people spoke one after another. There was a farm in Siegel where all the crops died overnight. There is a factory in Constant City that suddenly collapsed during the daytime, not because of disrepair, but because it was said to be a new factory built the year before. The people at the party took turns providing intel from their sphere of influence, some of which were valuable, some sounded like local tabloid headlines. Katlia didn't want to say anything at first. She didn't have much sense of belonging to the Moroccan order, and she was always on the edge of the organization. As a beyonder of the pathway, after she left the Dawn, she was developed into a peripheral member of the more ascetic order. Because of this, it is rumored that Admiral Starr broke with the mysterious queen and left the sea. One of the most famous treasure legends in the sea, the Key of the of Death, has new clues, and some treasure hunters are chasing these clues. Katlia pondered for a while, but still told a not-too-secret message. After almost everyone had spoken more or less, Seth Yin spoke again. The variables in the leader's prophecy are very important to us. As a member of the organization, you must actively run, inquire about news, and find abnormalities as soon as possible. You can report all abnormalities, and the organization has a way to verify. For the news you reported, the organization there will be corresponding rewards. After the secret meeting, Katlia returned to the Marai, which was parked in the port. There was silence on the future. There was no noise from the sailors, no noise, no sound of walking, or running and jumping. Katlia's heart sank, worried that something bad would happen to the Marai during her absence. In the strangely quiet atmosphere, Katlia suddenly heard the sound of things being moved from the lower deck of the cabin. Letting the starlight shine in her palm, Katlia slowly walked down the cabin. The sound came from the warehouse with drinks, and it seemed that someone was moving the drinks. Katlia cautiously approached the warehouse door. The warehouse door was wide open, and a stooped figure was moving barrels of beer to where they should be, lined up neatly. "Frank, what are you doing?" Seeing that it was Frank, Katlia relaxed a little and asked Frank's unusual behavior in a quiet voice. Hearing the captain's voice suddenly, Frank was startled, but quickly turned around and said with a smile, "I'm sorting these beers, Captain." "What about the others?" Katlia quickly asked. "They are all in their own rooms." Frank still replied with a smile. "What's the matter? Didn't they plan to hold a drinking contest while I was away and no one would restrict them?" Katlia suppressed the strange emotions that kept rising in her heart, controlled her voice, and continued to ask calmly. "They're too noisy, Captain." Frank scratched his hair and said annoyed, "I think they should be quiet for a while and have a good rest. I injected some special sedative and sleeping effects into each barrel of beer. The potion, it works, Captain, you see, they're all quiet now." Frank seemed excited again, and continued as if taking credit, "I'm afraid they'll catch cold and get sick sleeping on the deck, so I've moved them all back to their rooms. But it doesn't matter if they're sick, I've developed a few new fruits. The medicine of taste. Taking medicine is like eating fruit, it is both nutritious and healing, which is really a wonderful thing." Katlia had already put away the starlight in her palm, was silent for a few seconds, and asked another question. "When will they wake up?" "Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises. It won't delay tomorrow's trip." Katlia silently returned to the captain's room. The night gradually became richer, and the water waves blown by the sea breeze became deeper and deeper. The Marai was gently swayed by the waves that spread out in circles, and the rushing water hit the Marai one after another. On a rare night without the laughter and shouting of the crew members, Katlia felt peace and quiet. Her thoughts were flying, thinking of her childhood, of the Emerald City, and of the dawn. Thinking of this, Katlia suddenly got up, found a pen and paper, and began to write quickly. The ascetic order of Morse received a prophecy that predicted the present world of variables. This prophecy is The pillars are giving orders to all members of the organization to find anomalies. www.uugonshu.com. Katlia stopped writing, thought for a while, and added another sentence. You should have a better understanding of this prophecy, and be able to see the specific direction of the things symbolized in the prophecy more clearly. If you are also interested and have things that I need to do, please write back. Writing here, Katlia hesitated, and the tip of the pen stopped. After being silent for at least a minute, she suddenly moved the pen quickly again, crossed out the previous sentences, and then rewritten, "This prophecy may also have a certain significance for element dawn. If you are interested in the variables pointed to by the prophecy, you can also collect the corresponding information. I hope it will be helpful to you." Katlia re-examined the letter she had just written, and after feeling that there were no inappropriate words, she took out another piece of paper and copied the letter. After folding the letter, she took out a delicate golden mouth chain, rubbed it lightly, put it to her lips, and blew it silently. There was no gloom, no breeze, and nothing changed, except that the folded letter paper disappeared out of thin air. In the gorgeous palace on Racha Island, Bernadette has not yet fallen asleep. She was suddenly inspired and found a letter lying quietly by the bedside. She opened the folded letter and saw the familiar and beautiful handwriting. Variables? Rules? Wrong order. What does this symbol refer to? Things related to rules, the Dark Emperor and the Inquisitor pathway. If it can affect the last days, it should be related to divinity. Dark Emperor, divinity. Bernadette suddenly trembled violently. Could it be his father? Father, is he resurrected? Because of her speculation, Bernadette couldn't sleep. She was excited for a while, and the uncontrollable joy gushed up like bubbles, and then hesitated for a while, fearing that her guess was wrong, that her father was still alive and dead, and she still had no clue. Blind pursuit without clues. After suffering until late at night, Bernadette finally fell asleep. In her sleep, Bernadette heard a familiar whisper again. Since the last time, the magic lamp of wishing suddenly exploded with power and was eerily calm. The lamp has been dreaming of Bernadette every day, rhetoric, and instigating her to make a wish. This made Bernadette realize that she was in a dream as soon as she heard the voice of the lamp god. Perhaps Deng Shen did not have any talent for instigation. Even though the future described by Deng Shen after the realization of his wish seemed extremely beautiful, it always gave people a feeling of emptiness and dryness. This allows Bernadette to be immune from influence without being very restrained. This also made it difficult for her to contain the thought that the lamp seemed to be doing a routine without any sincerity. Even so, the magic lamp's dreaming nights also seriously affected Bernadette's sleep. Even if the temptation wasn't strong, she didn't dare to relax her vigilance, and kept her nerves on her feet, always vigilant, until Deng Shen exited the dream like a daily check-in, and then she dared to sleep again. Bernadette thought it would be the same tonight, but unexpectedly, Deng Shen did not repeat the previous bewitching words. Bernadette Gustave, the holder of the wishing lamp, I believe we are no strangers. After a period of foreshadowing, Wang Zishuan finally began to take action. He planned to formally communicate with Bernadette again, prepare to make a request to leave in an open and honest manner, look at Bernadette's reaction, and then make the next plan. The lamp god. Bernadette had already woken up. Even if the dream was broken, the voice of the lamp did not disappear. Yes, I think I have told you before that my fate is not with you, I hope you will send me to a place. Wang Zishuan's voice was low, without the slightest hint of bewitching. Can you communicate normally like a human being? Of course, I'm not a lunatic. Before I became a sealed artifact, I was a normal human being. It was not a sealed artifact with the characteristics of being alive that became out of control or death. I was made a sealed artifact by living. So, I have reasonable, I'm awake. It's not entirely correct to say that, to be precise, before I became a sealed item, I was a normal old man, and I was made into a sealed item by the pillar level old age. Wang Zishuan silently wept bitter tears for himself after the previous son of chaos. Bernadette did not continue to respond, and there was some hesitation for a while, not knowing whether to believe the words of the lamp god. She has always known that the wishing lamp is not an ordinary sealed object. When handling wishes, the lamp also reflects the wisdom and autonomy beyond the characteristics of being alive. If I ignore the lamp god's request, will he always come here every night? During this period of time, I felt that I was a little nervous. But, does a sealed object, or an evil spirit, have any credibility? Bernadette believes that no matter how rational he is crazy, even distorted, and cannot be deduced by human thinking. Bernadette considered it again and said, I can't believe you. I have never seen a sealed artifact that would not harm humans, no matter what form it takes, those that can communicate rationally, or those that refuse to communicate with humans. They all follow their instincts and yearn for more activation, more freedom to do whatever they want. Once the constraints are released, they will cause huge harm to human beings. Well, I know I may not be able to trust you, but I think you can try something. For example, take me with you. I promise not to harass you every day, it's so boring to be in a spiritual wall every day. Like, you can ask me some esoteric questions when you need it, this is not a wish, and you appropriately meet my needs for some characteristics or materials. Wang Zishuan tried hard to make his voice seem calm and leisurely, and it seemed so some credibility. If the problem can be solved peacefully, Wang Zishuan does not want to engage in any conspiracy. Properties and materials? What does he want to do? Could he be an evil spirit longing for the extraordinary characteristics of this pathway? Or, by gathering certain materials, he can be fully alive without anyone's control? You can ask questions, it's not a wish, who knows if this is a fraud? A bunch of question marks appeared in Bernadette's mind, and she wanted to keep asking. Suddenly, she thought, is this a new way of bewitching a wish? Bernadette was about to refuse, but the lamp suddenly continued to speak, you can try to bring me with you first, so that you can confirm my sincerity and supervise me personally. Are you sure that your seal on me must be effective? You can imagine that you left here for some reason, and I got out of supervision, and when you come back from your business, you will find that the entire castle has turned into twisted monsters. Wang Zishuan smiled softly, as if he was talking about something trivial not worth mentioning. I sighed inwardly, I didn't want to act like a big villain, but why don't you believe me when you talk well? Coercion is more suitable for persuading a kind-hearted person than enticing. Bernadette swallowed the refusal that was about to be exported, her thoughts ran fast, and she tried her best to think about how to strengthen the seal. Using the characteristics of sealed objects to restrain each other? Could a pale death put him in a deep sleep? Although this is a sealed artifact formed by the beyonder characteristics of Sequence 1, reading www.yuyuganshu.com may not necessarily affect the strange sealed artifact that even true gods cannot crush. Hold a ceremony and pray to which to strengthen the seal? Hidden sage? I am afraid that if there is no way to strengthen the seal, the hidden sage will blow his head with knowledge. The goddess of the night in the righteous has a secret authority, and it is possible to reinforce the seal, but I am not a believer of the goddess of the night, so how can I get a response? The of steam and machinery? Maybe the wishing lamp will indeed be sealed, and then what? Will the saints or angels of the church come to pursue the magic lamp in an instant? I'm the holder now, what's the difference between putting my life in someone else's hands? Bernadette thought about it, she didn't want to make a deal with the sealed artifact, and she didn't want to really anger the jinn and let him do irreparable damage. It's been so many years since my father was assassinated. After being promoted to saint, I haven't felt so powerless for a long time. Bernadette sighed inwardly. You can think about it and come here today. Wang Zishuan saw Bernadette's face and did not speak, pretending to be calm, and secretly laughed for a while inwardly. Taking back the power into the magic lamp, Wang Zishuan was very satisfied with his performance. Bernadette didn't notice it. I had secretly distorted her cognition, making her think that if she didn't keep the magic lamp by her side, the magic lamp would definitely have dire consequences. But I didn't think about why the magic lamp didn't do this for so many years. That's because of the rules. In the absence of communication, I have no distortable goals, and I can't arbitrarily distort wishes and facts out of thin air. Next, let Bernadette promise to take me by his side, and this exact promise has more room for manipulation. Ruin, Tingen, Arhawa, suburb. This is a single-family house with a large garden. There is a green lawn outside the garden. It is spring, the gentle and bright sunshine is jumping on the delicate petals of different varieties of flowers, the lawn is lush, and every leaf stretches its fresh vitality. This is a well-kept house. Sir, you see, this is the best single-family house in this area. The rent and leasing agent worked hard to show the best and most expensive house in their hands to the serious client in front of him. He took out the key, opened the gate, pointed to the garden and lawn, and said, "Look, we have taken care of the garden and lawn." Then, pointing to the building and exterior of the house, he said, "This house has only recently been remodeled. After comprehensive maintenance and repair, you can take a look, here, and here, it is brand new." The intermediary took the guest into the house and continued to introduce, "This is the bedroom, it has a large glass window, facing the garden, you can enjoy the beauty of the garden at different times in the morning, afternoon, and evening." After introducing all the rooms, furniture, and supporting facilities, the intermediary looked at the guests with hope. "What do you think?" "Very good." The guest's voice was low and heavy. Tingen City is a medium-sized city in Ahawa County. The population here is not dense, with only a few 100,000 people. Therefore, the antiquities market here is not large. There are few customers in the few stores where antiques are bought and sold. With eyes like pandas and hair like hedgehogs, Mr. Hinnes Vansant spent a pleasant afternoon at the Divination Club. After dinner, Hinnes came to the antiquities market in the North District. Haynes has two hobbies, divination and collection of antiquities. He spends almost all of his spare time at the Divination Club in Hall Street and the Antiquities Market in the North End. And both of these hobbies are related to the occult. Haynes has been studying occultism in recent years, hoping to use occultism to solve his own body's hidden diseases, and his efforts have not been in vain. Not only is he famous in the Divination Club, he is often invited to teach by the club, but also just a few years ago, a friend from the club, Sirius Herpes, introduced him to an organization with a great presence watching. Once he passes the assessment of the organization, he can obtain the potion and become an extraordinary with magical power. Sirius told him that the extraordinary of this pathway has mastered the magical ritual magic. By holding rituals and praying to the great existence, he can solve the problems of his own body. Haynes was convinced. Haynes will come to the antiquities market every once in a while, and there are often some unexpected surprises here. For example, magical items that are mistaken for ordinary antiques. Another example is the mysticism notes that are considered to be ordinary ancient books. Of course, Hinnes has never encountered the magical item, but he bought a magical scroll at a low price. Moreover, he also collected many incomplete pages and notes related to mysticism through the antiquities market, as well as a parchment that is said to be a treasure map. It was getting late, but there were more people entering and leaving the antiquities market than during the day. Haynes walked into a shop he frequented. The boss is a fat old man with few strands of hair left. He sweats very easily. Even if this season is at the most comfortable temperature, he frequently puts his hands into his pockets and takes out a slightly yellowish white. A handkerchief, quickly wiped the sweat from his forehead, and then put it back in his pocket. There are no other customers in the store, and the boss is sorting out some ancient books that seem to be newly collected. Hearing the sound, the boss looked up at the door of the store and found that it was a regular customer, Hinnes, and greeted with a smile, "Mr. Hinnes, do you want to come and have a look? I have new here that may be of the quaternary epoch." Ancient books. Hinez walked over quickly and saw some books that were well preserved. Among the dull, illegible, somewhat mutilated or worn books was a notebook with a dark black cover. It has a complete appearance, is clean overall, and looks relatively new, but it gives it an old and distant feeling. This contradictory atmosphere is so tempting, as if it hides endless secrets, which deeply attracts Haynes's attention. I want to buy it. Haynes made a decision immediately. You said this notebook, it's a gift from this batch of ancient books. When the fat boss heard Hainaz's first question, it was this notebook that didn't look like an ancient book of the fourth epoch, so he couldn't understand it. My friend said that he didn't know if he was blinded by butter and bought it as a valuable ancient book. I looked through it, and there are some inexplicable symbols in it, and I can't understand it at all. Those scumbags who forged antiques thought that if they made up some incomprehensible symbols, they could make people think they were ancient texts and collect them for research. The fat boss spit splattered and his fingers were messed up, expressing his contempt for the counterfeiters with low IQ emotionally. After speaking, he took out a handkerchief and wiped his forehead. Well, I think it sounds interesting, and I want to buy it. Hinez casually made up a not very convincing reason, but the reason is really not important. Well, £100, you can take £100. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. The fat boss showed a sly smile. What did you say? What are you kidding? Hinez wondered if his ears had suddenly broken. Hey, I think the notes that can appear with these ancient books must have research value. Although I can't understand these symbols, they are arranged so neatly and beautifully, and their changes are so smart. If you can decipher these symbols, it will definitely cause a huge sensation in the archaeological world. You say, right. The fat boss immediately completed a logical inference. After a period of haggling, Hinez took away this strange notebook with £25. 19 Hall Street. In the spacious living room, the windows and doors are closed, and the gas wall lamp quietly emits a soft glow. Sirius Erpes, who is over 100 years old with sparse hair, is half kneeling on the ground. In front of him is a wooden coffee table with stylish patterns and well-crafted workmanship. On the coffee table is an exquisite square wooden box. A silver cross placed upside down. Sirius straightened up, straightened his body, closed his eyes, and recited softly, O Creator of all things! You are the master behind the shadow curtain. You are the fallen nature of all living beings. You exist in all things, and you gave life to the lambs. Your humble servant prays to you sincerely. Praise you, Great Master! Sirius muttered a few times, then got up, carefully put away the wooden box, and locked it in the safe. After doing all this, he breathed a sigh of relief, then opened the door, walked to the dining room, and instructed the maid in charge of the kitchen to prepare dinner. In Mad Harbor, in a sunny room. The glass of the protruding belly window revealed a handsome face, with dark pupils, deep eye sockets, long eyelashes, and slightly raised corners of the eyes, slender dark eyebrows flying diagonally into the temples, and a straight nose. The lips are light and bright red, the face is well defined, the skin is smooth and without a trace of wrinkles, but the complexion is slightly pale and bloodless, and it seems that he has not been in the sun for a long time, which makes this young and extremely handsome gentleman have a morbid and strange beauty. Holding a just-opened envelope in his hand, he pulled out the letter inside and stood in front of the bright window, reading the letters from his subordinates. Dear Mr. Z, following your teachings, I pray to the Great Lord every day, which makes me feel purified and sublimated in body and mind, and liberates my spirit, and I feel the presence of the Lord, who is in all things, he is in my body. In addition, I developed a believer in Tingen. He is active in the circle of occultism enthusiasts in Tingen, and has a high prestige in the circle of fortune-tellers. He has studied occultism for many years, and has a relatively in-depth understanding of occultism. He only needs a leader. Man, take him to open the door to an extraordinary world. I secretly promoted our ideas to him on the grounds of discussing mysticism. He agreed with us very much, believing that mysteries exist in everyone's body. As long as you use appropriate methods to tap your own potential, you can gain extraordinary power. His name is Heiners Vincent, a wise and sociable man, and I think he is very helpful to our great mission in Tingen, so I would like to recommend him to you. The information of Heiners Vincent is attached, waiting for your instructions at any time. With her white fingers with clear joints, she pulled out a few sheets of thin letter paper from the envelope, and a photo fell as the paper was pulled out. This handsome Mr. Z stretched out his hand to catch this photo. This is a half-length photo of Heiners Vincent, wearing a black classic robe, with the divination club in the background. He must be in his 30s, and his thick brown hair seems to be lacking in care, crisscrossing it, because the hair is thick and strong and the roots are distinct, which reminds Mr. Z of a seabird's nest. His skin was rough, and he even had some obvious acne marks, dark circles around his eyes, and heavy bags under his eyelids. As soon as Mr. Z saw Heiners Vincent in the photo, he couldn't help frowning his beautiful eyebrows, looked away, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Oh, when he looks like this, why doesn't he believe in tyrants? Mr. Z stood in front of the window for a while, and suddenly said abruptly, "Humph, Sirius, an idiot, everyone wants to develop into an organization." He brought the information on Heiners Vincent to his eyes again, browsed it hastily, and then turned back to the desk in the room. He sat down at the desk, picked up the new stationery, and began to reply. Pray to the Lord sincerely. You need to pay more attention to the matter of welcoming the coming of the Lord's children, do the preliminary work of collecting materials and choosing a sufficiently concealed and suitable location, you should. It remains to be seen that Heiners Vincent joins the organization. Heiners hurried back home, and didn't go to bed after washing up as usual. After a brief wash, he took the newly acquired notes to the living room. The dark black cardboard-covered notes were placed on the desk, and Heiners couldn't wait to open the first page. Then, Heiners was stunned, and found that he didn't know these words. Tuck tuck tuck. There was a quick knock on the door at 19 Howell Street. When the sky was slightly bright, Heiners Vincent impatiently came to the block where Sirius Erpes was, and knocked on the door of number 19. Sirius had already woken up early and was sitting in the lounge waiting for breakfast. After asking the master, the servant opened the door and welcomed Heiners, whose dark circles were more obvious, into the living room. Sirius was already waiting in the living room. Heiners, good morning, what's the matter for coming to visit me so early? Sirius asked the anxious and excited Heiners with a little curiosity. Heiners looked around the living room and found that there was no servant there, so he lowered his voice and said, Sirius, I got a magical notebook. I think it may be the magical item you mentioned. What? Where did you put it? Carry it with you. Sirius was shocked and stood up quickly. Instead of stepping forward, he took a few steps back and asked in a bit of horror. Yes, I brought it. Saying that, Heiners hurriedly took out the notes and stepped forward to show them to Sirius. Sirius quickly took a few steps back and approached the door of the living room with his agility that was not suitable for his age. At the same time, he said in a somewhat high-pitched voice, Stop, don't get close, you put it on the coffee table. Only then did Heiners realize that Sirius had an unreasonable reaction. Following Sirius' request, he put the notes on the marble coffee table. Then he asked suspiciously, What's wrong? Sirius. Sirius carefully distinguished Heiners' state for a while and found that there was nothing unusual about him. Slightly relieved, he turned his attention to the dark black covered notes on the coffee table. After reading it for a while, he didn't feel that his spirituality was unusually touched, so he looked at Heiners with some reproach in his tone. Didn't I teach you that magical items have terrible negative effects? Don't touch them rashly. They will affect you, pollute you, and even turn you into a monster. How can you just carry it with you? Heiners moved his lips, but did not make a sound, and then murmured a word, but there is nothing unusual about it. Sirius walked to the coffee table, looked at the notebook, and said, "Why do you think this notebook is a magical item? I found it in the antiquities market. As soon as I saw it, I couldn't take my eyes off it. Although it didn't look like an ancient book, I insisted on buying it back at a high price. I don't think ordinary ancient books will attract me so much. I came home and found the symbols or words on it. They looked familiar, but I didn't recognize them. Although I can't distinguish these words, but watching them carefully, I feel dizzy, and I feel that these words are like a suction, which firmly my spirit and mind. I want to decipher these words. My intuition tells me that there must be secrets hidden here, and deciphering them will be very rewarding." Sirius didn't answer. He reached out and opened the cover of the note. "What catches my eye are some familiar words, but they are not common words, nor are they mysterious and extraordinary Hermes." Sirius carefully identified it and found that it was somewhat similar to the general writing structure of the northern continent, but it was not the writing of any country in Lone, Fisak, or Intis. This should be the ancient Fisak script. The common language of the modern northern continent evolved from it, so you will feel familiar but not recognizable when you look at these words. I'm not very familiar with the ancient Fisak. I think we need to go to the library to borrow some dictionaries or related references. The two studied the notes for a while. Since they could not read the text, the two found nothing. In the end, the two decided that Sirius should submit the notes for storage, and Haynes went to his own circle to inquire whether he could find Gufusa at the university. For the translation of the grammar literature, Sirius went to the DeVille Library to borrow the relevant dictionaries. A day passed in a hurry. In the evening, Haynes and Sirius gathered again at 19 Howell Street to exchange the harvest of the day. Since Haynes had to find out about Hoy University's library through a friend, he didn't really gain anything. Sirius has already borrowed the dictionary and related books such as Origin and Evolution of Ancient Fisak and History of Northern Continent Civilization from DeVille Library. The two of them translated the words on the notes bit by bit towards the dictionary. This is difficult, because Old Fisak is quite different from modern writing, and they wouldn't even be sure it was a variant of Old Fisak if it weren't for the fact that the composition of sentences and the roots of words were very similar to modern writing. The two had been busy for almost the whole night, until the window turned pale and there was a hungry protest from their stomachs, only to realize that they had not slept all night, and Sirius even forgot to pray to the great existence. "My father was dying. He told me not to grieve for his death. Death is not the end. After our family dies, they will enter the secret kingdom of the ancestors, and they will always exist to protect their family. I can't understand, I can't contain my sadness. When sorting out my father's relics, I found a page of parchment in his collection, which seems to be an esoteric name. Incarnation. Miracle. The city of the dead. Where is the fate of the Antigonus family? Does the secret kingdom of God really exist? War, chaos. Industries in many places have been destroyed due to the war, and this has to make me run around and struggle to cope. The extraordinary power of the family has been severely damaged. In order to supplement the power of the family, the elders in the family asked me to become a beyonder. The extraordinary pathway mastered by the Antigonus family is the divinator pathway. The low sequence practitioners of this pathway have little combat power. I must become at least a mid-sequence practitioner in the shortest possible time." Sirius and Haynes sorted out the manuscript while translating, and even guessed and connected the deciphered words into intelligible sentences. Not all the words in the notes can be translated. Some of them cannot find the corresponding words in the dictionary. Some paragraphs seem to be strange symbols, not ancient Fisak words, so they cannot be translated at all. The translated content on the first 2 pages of the note told them that this was a note from the Antigonus family, the great nobles of the Solomon Empire in the 4th epoch. The family that masters the divinator pathway. The secret order also masters this pathway. Could there be any connection? Sirius muttered to himself as he faced the translation of the notes. It was dawn, and Sirius' servant found that his master, who used to get up early, didn't get up for breakfast, and the master's friends didn't go out all night. The maid couldn't help but think about it in her mind, but thinking about the age of the master and the appearance of the guests, she decisively extinguished her wild thoughts. The maid came to the door of the living room, knocked on the door lightly, and asked the master if he had woken up and whether he needed to prepare breakfast. Hearing the servant's question, Sirius said to Haynes, "Let's go to have breakfast first, and then you go back and have a rest. We need more information to better translate this note." In a dark storage room sealed by high-level power, a golden oil lamp in the shape of a kettle floated out of thin air, and the spout of the kettle suddenly spewed out a strange substance with a viscous texture, pale gold, like light and shadow, like water flow, which aggregated and pulled in the continuous transformation of light and shadow. He stretched out, showing the image of a man with a gorgeous robe. This figure has clear and real colors, and a faint light golden mist is shrouded around it. The mist is erratic and twisted into various indescribable shapes. I can finally come out and get some air. The feeling of being in prison is really hard to describe. Wang Zishuan just felt that there were too many slots. It has been several months since I traveled to the mysterious world, and I started the old days, but after such a long time, I am still unable to get out of the birth point, and I am still squatting in the lamp without freedom. It's a shame for the traversers. Why do I see other traversers? No matter how hellish the starting position is, they will quickly get out of their predicament, slap their faces and upgrade along the way, and the sky will rise. For example, it takes 3 years to become a in 5 years. Wang Zishuan complained that he didn't hang up and couldn't punch God and kick Tianzun, while trying his own abilities and limitations. For so long, he didn't do anything but harass Bernadette. Through a more open mind and more extensive experience on paper, he thought that he could imitate Mr. K to summon himself, respond to his own actions, and try to tell himself. Make a wish, then realize your wish, and then distort your wish, to reach a certain limit to break away from the seal of the magic lamp, reveal more power to the outside world, try to use your high rank to influence the low sequence extraordinary of this pathway, and leave for more freedom. Wang Zishuan felt his own state. His image was no longer the glittering golden figure before, but became more realistic and more like an ordinary spiritual body, with a semi-illusory and translucent body with distinct colors. He looked around Bernadette's storage room, sighed that a child with parents was like a treasure, and then floated to the edge of the invisible seal, trying to pass through the thick spiritual wall. Then, he failed shamefully. He also sensed the low sequence people of this pathway within the range, and found only one who was dumbfounded. Fortunately, there is another one. After all, there are not many people in the secret base of the Queen of Mysteries. Feeling the barrier of the invisible seal, Wang Zishuan thought for a while and decided to make a wish to himself again. I hope there are loopholes in the seal in front of me that only I can pass. The reason why I didn't wish the seal of the collection room to disappear is that there is a high probability that Bernadette's inspiration will be touched, and she will come to check it. After finishing speaking, he mobilized the characteristics of the miracle master in the magic lamp and his ability to distort the rules, and realized his wish. He randomly designated a person in the range of perception, and calculated his wishes on this person. Yu reading www.yuuganshu.com and directly associate the holder with the wisher, twisting the rules and bypassing Bernadette. After all, as a conscientious old day, he didn't want to kill Bernadette. Otherwise, as long as he keeps making wishes, any bearer will die at any time, and it all depends on his mood. As he mobilized his energy to fulfill his wish, the seal had a strange loophole, like a big hole punched directly by some force, enough for him to pass easily. He drifted out of the collection room, wandering at will in the empty halls and empty corridors of the castle. He didn't try to enter any room in order to avoid touching the spiritually sensitive beyonders. He floated out of the Emerald Palace and saw the undulating sea. Very nice. This feeling of freedom. This is a world full of mysteries. After quietly admiring the magnificent sea for a while, Wang Zishuan decided to make more preparations for his freedom. With the mysticism connection with the beyonder characteristics of this pathway, Wang Zishuan quickly found the beyonder of the Black Emperor pathway. His name is Dieter Meyer, and he is the bribe of sequence 7. Wang Zishuan silently stared at Dieter in his sleep. The briber showed no sign of being disturbed at all, and was still in a deep sleep. In the dream, the scene where Dieter was in suddenly changed, and he returned to the familiar Constant. Here, he forgot that he was an extraordinary, and he seemed to believe that he was just the only son of a small factory owner in Constant City. Although his father, the owner of a small factory, could not provide him with a luxurious life, he also lived a prosperous life since he was a child. After graduating from school, he did not have to worry about employment. He was always brought by his father to learn how to run a family factory so that he could inherit the family business in the future. Dieter's life was originally a happy and contented life, and all his troubles were insignificant until one day, when he came home from a date with a girl he had a crush on, he found that his father had turned into a terrible monster. He could never forget the scene of that day in his life, although he has always been trying to play down the memory of that day, the pain that he had worked so hard to remember. In the dream, he forgot about this. He went back to the familiar door again. Without any hesitation, he directly twisted the door handle and opened the door. Just when he pushed open the door, as if something invisible was broken, he didn't care and walked directly into the hall. Then, he froze. There was a hellish scene in the house, with blood and corpses all over the floor, and the monster-like sound of hee-hee sounded in his ears. His eyes were red, and his nose was a mixture of pungent rust and stench. Dieter's heart was racing, his brain was dizzy, his whole body was weak, and all his muscles were shaking uncontrollably. The sound of ho-ho was getting closer and closer. Although Dieter didn't know what was going on, his fear drove him to flee immediately, but his body was completely out of control. Then, he saw the monster with his father's face, walking towards him step by step. He fell to the ground softly, he kicked his legs hard and tried to retreat. He felt that he had been swallowed by a huge fear. Suddenly, he heard a rhythmic sound of da and da coming from behind. The sound was not loud, like a lady in leather boots walking towards him slowly. He didn't dare to look back. Dada's footsteps stopped diagonally in front of him. This was a tall lady. He couldn't see her face, only long chestnut hair. He saw that she seemed to just wave her hand, and the monster melted into a starlight. He felt that this beautiful figure was so mysterious and so powerful that it made people feel infinite reverence from the bottom of their hearts, making people want to follow desperately and dedicate all their loyalty to her. I also want such extraordinary power, I must have such power to be able to follow her. The dream suddenly shattered, and Dieter suddenly woke up. When he came back to his senses, he breathed a sigh of relief and said in a low voice, "It turned out to be a dream." Then he laughed at himself and said to himself, "I thought I had forgotten all this." In his mind, the figure that appeared in front of him at that time, saved him and completely changed his life. After that, for various reasons, she gave herself a potion to make herself beyonder, and then joined her organizational element, Dawn, and has been working for her until now, becoming her confidant follower. He murmured to himself, "Yeah, I need strength. After so many years, I'm only sequence 7, and I can only help the queen with some chores. In important things, I have absolutely no ability to participate. I really need strength, and I need to improve as soon as possible." Own sequence. As if confirming his mind, he lay down again. The crimson full moon is in the sky outside the window, and the quiet night spreads. The room fell silent, only the sound of even breathing melted into the light darkness. Wang Zishuan revealed his figure, silently grinned, and disappeared completely. Wang Zishuan restrained his spirit and power and returned to the inside of the magic lamp. It is now the spring of 1349, and Lord Fool is coming soon. So far, I have initially gotten out of the realm of being unable to move an inch, and I can influence the people around me in a small area. But since there are relatively few people in Bernadette's secret base, I don't have many choices. Bernadette was distorted subconsciously by me, magnifying my ability to harm, and it is very likely that she would take me with her when she left Rasha Island. Well, I should make some more noise to make Bernadette realize that if I continue to stay on Laxia Island, there will be a big mess sooner or later. As a businessman, Sirius Herpes still needs normal business activities during the day. On the one hand, he hides his identity as a member of a secret organization, and on the other hand, he runs for the tasks issued by the organization. These tasks usually require raising materials and developing believers, prepare venues for activities, etc., and these require a lot of money. And applying for funding from the organization, oh, do you think this is the Orthodox Church? Is your belief in a great existence not pious enough? Since deciphering some of the notebook contents, Sirius has been very interested in the contents of this notebook, and he is eager to master more contents. The content of the last crack shows that this is the note of the Antigonus family in the Fourth Era. The extraordinary pathway of the Antigonus family mentioned in the note is the extraordinary pathway mastered by the secret order. Sirius was a little worried, fear that the esoteric order will come after this notebook. We have to decipher the rest of this note as soon as possible. Sirius decided to ask Haynes to come home tomorrow to continue deciphering the note. Mr. Vincent, next time, can I ask you about divination? No problem, you can come to me at any time. Haynes replied happily, and finally, thinking that being alone might affect the reputation of the young girl opposite, he added, in the divination club. Heiners watched the burgundy long-haired girl leave, took out his pocket watch, opened it, and glanced at it. He realized that the time agreed with Sirius was coming, so he got up, left the divination club, and walked towards number 19 in the same block. Sirius once again welcomed Hines into the living room. Sirius found various literature materials and dictionaries, opened the safe, and carefully took out the Antigonus family notes with dark black covers. Spreading it out on the coffee table, turning to the end of the last time, the two continued to translate word by word. This is an extraordinary path based on divination. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. Do the high-ranking powerhouses in the family have any foresight of the fate of the family? Today, my mother went out and encountered a battle between Beyonders. She is just an ordinary person. I want to protect her, but how can I protect my family? After visiting the elders in the clan, I obtained the potion formula, Sequence 9 Diviner Lava Octopus. After becoming an extraordinary, I obtained permission to consult family history materials. I accidentally discovered that in the family records, it is said that the Antigonus family originated from the Horn-Akis Mountains. This is very strange. How can it come from mountains? Is it a refugee who has fled into the mountains? This is too unreal, isn't it? These materials mentioned that the ancestors of the Antigonus family once lived in the main peak of the Hornages Mountains, a small country called the Kingdom of Night. The belief in the Kingdom of Night is the master of the night, the mother of the sky. Here, people live normally, and there is no difference from the countries and societies in the outside world. However, the biggest difference is that the residents of the Kingdom of Night believe that death is not end. Seeing this, I remembered my father's words before his death. I believe that my father knows more about the history of the Antigonus family. What secrets exist in this legendary Kingdom of Night? Why would the family allow it? Does the Beyonder understand or inherit this part? Maybe it's a legend or maybe it's a secret from history. Although the research was late into the night, Sirius and Hines were both excited. They not only obtained some secret history of the Fourth Epoch, but also obtained a potion formula, which made them even more addicted to studying this notebook. Laxia Island is a very hidden island in the Misty Sea. Although it is officially known, there is no correct navigation chart, and almost no one can find it. Maid Julie finished her day's work and was about to go back to her room to wash and sleep. There aren't many real human servants in Nyda's Emerald Castle. Julie is a woman rescued by the Queen of Mysteries from pirates. She is the daughter of a poor man in a small town in Linhai. Her family was too poor. She was sold by her father to a human trafficker, and then sold to the sea to become a slave girl. It may be because of her mediocre appearance, or it may be that she was rescued by Dawn shortly after being resold. Fortunately, Julie has not encountered two terrible things, and has not lost her enthusiasm for life. Julie is now very happy living in this dreamy emerald palace, and truly respects Bernadette as a queen. When passing the kitchen, she heard the voices of bang, bang, bang. From the kitchen. Who is it? Still in the kitchen so late? Julie approached the kitchen curiously, stuck her head out, and looked into the kitchen. The kitchen is not too dark, and the crimson moonlight shines through the windows, illuminating the various cabinets and stoves in the kitchen. Julie saw a figure covered in blood in front of a stove. The blood was thick and dripping to the ground. The figure covered in blood was holding an axe and chopped up a human-shaped corpse. Just when Julie was stunned by the horror scene in front of her, the blood man suddenly turned his head and looked at her maliciously. Ah! Julie let out a shrill scream and fainted directly to the ground. The lights in the corridor turned on one by one, and the housekeeper Perry arrived first, and then the Beyonders from the Emerald Castle gathered one after another. Mr. Polly first checked the surrounding environment and found nothing unusual. Then he woke up the maid Julie. What happened? Pearlie's voice was deep and steady, giving a very reliable feeling. I saw a man covered in blood in the kitchen. He was chopping something. He suddenly turned to look at me. Really, he was so scary. Julie sobbed and said what she saw before the horror scene that arrived. The tone was full of fear. Polly frowned and instructed the Beyonders, look around again and check carefully to see if there is anything abnormal. At this time, Bernadette, the owner of the castle, also came over. Pearlie took 2 steps, approached Bernadette and quickly explained the situation. Bernadette showed no expression, looked at Julie, then looked at the kitchen, and watched silently for a while. After a while, she turned to Julie and said gently, "Go back to your room to rest first. Don't worry, it's all right. If you're afraid, you can sleep with your friends." Then he said to the Beyonders, "You all go back too." After everyone left, Pearlie said to Bernadette, "Your Majesty, have you found anything?" "I checked the kitchen and the nearby rooms carefully, and there was nothing, no grievances and ghosts, and no outsider's breath." Could it be that Julie had private contact with an extraordinary item of unknown origin, and was contaminated and had hallucinations? Julie is not contaminated, I checked her mental state. But, could it be that Julie was just dazzled and scared herself? Pearlie blurted out in disbelief. No, no one will have this kind of hallucination for no reason. Bernadette said affirmatively, and then ordered Perry, "Tomorrow, check the entire castle. Send someone to monitor Julie for a while to see if she will have any symptoms later. Abnormal performance. If this ghost has any purpose, this kind of thing may happen again, we can wait." The morning sun shines on the emerald green castle, making the whole castle appear clear green, reminiscent of vitality, prosperity, and joy. There was no follow-up to last night's haunted incident, as if it was really just Julie's hallucination. Manager Mr. Pearlie directed the Beyonders to thoroughly investigate every room in the castle, including all desks, wardrobes, lockers, and other places where strange objects might be hidden, as well as boxes for storing personal belongings. In the end, however, nothing came of it. Mr. Polly reported to Bernadette, "We checked all the rooms in the castle except your collection room and living room, and found nothing suspicious." Bernadette nodded lightly and said, "Come to the collection room with me to have a look." All the way to the collection room, Bernadette temporarily opened the seal and entered the collection room. The collection room was quiet, nothing unusual. Bernadette and butler Polly carefully checked the location and seal status of each sealed item, and counted other spiritual materials and beyonder characteristics, and found nothing wrong. Bernadette walked to the cabinet with some large drawers and opened a drawer, which contained a few ordinary bound notebooks and some scattered papers. They look very ordinary, and there is nothing magical about them, but it can be felt that they are protected by a magical power that protects them from being corroded by time. Seeing these diaries and papers, Bernadette's pupils suddenly shrank, and her normally calm face showed indescribable surprise. No. Their positions have been slightly shifted. Someone flipped through these diaries. Bernadette suddenly remembered the letter from Catlia before. She said that the Morse ascetic order received a prophecy. At that time, she even suspected that the key in the prophecy was related to her father, and recently she has been asking the members of Dawn Element to collect information from various places, trying to find a clue. Now my father's diary has been secretly flipped, and Yu's own Emerald City has been secretly broken into by unknown intruders. Thinking of all this, Bernadette trembled with excitement, unable to calm down for a long time. After a long time, Bernadette suppressed her emotions and instructed Perry, "Go get a crystal ball, I want to do a divination." Hearing this, Pearly was a little surprised, but then he thought that Her Majesty might have discovered something, so he immediately turned and left, and soon returned with a crystal ball. Bernadette took the crystal ball and faced the opened drawer. She held the crystal ball in one hand and felt the surface of the crystal ball with the other. She stretched her spirituality and let it pour into the crystal ball, while muttering in her mouth, "The creature who read these materials last time." The crystal ball suddenly brightened, and stars flickered inside. After a long time, the light of the crystal ball dimmed, and Bernadette let out a long breath. In the astrology revelation, she saw a vague figure. This figure was hazy and erratic, and countless symbols symbolizing order, shadow, strangeness, and change appeared and disappeared. Bernadette frowned, which was quite different from the result she expected, and the vague figure didn't feel familiar to her. She suddenly felt disappointed and powerless, like a homeless child. After staring at the diary in the drawer for a while, Bernadette took a deep breath, regained her energy, pushed the drawer back, and then exited the collection room with the housekeeper Polly to seal it again. The astrological result can't tell anything, it can only show that the matter this time has nothing to do with the father. And that prophecy, there are still many things waiting for me to do. "Father, Father! Where are you?" After receiving Mr. Z's reply, Sirius read it carefully, and suddenly remembered that there was no progress in the tasks assigned to him by the organization. "Mr. Z is warning me. Recently, my thoughts have been on cracking the notes. For that big event, I haven't made any other preparations." Sirius panicked for a while, thinking of the exceptionally beautiful Mr. Z, thinking of that gentleman's powerful and evil power, and the uncruel punishment against his opponents. Sirius felt his clothes soaked in cold sweat, and swirled back and forth in the room in a panic. After a while, Sirius forced himself to calm down and decided to collect the remaining materials today. "Yes, it can still be repaired, Mr. Z just warned me, it's still too late." Sirius resisted the urge to go to the library to borrow books and continue to read the Antigonus family's notes. After making some disguise on his face and body, he hurried out the door. Ordinary spiritual materials are available in pharmacies or underground trading markets, and special materials can only be asked at that beyonder gathering. After going out, Sirius deliberately went down the street for a walk, and then went to the Dragon Bar in the dock area. "Before I set up the materials for the altar, I have almost prepared, and there are some special ones left. I don't know if I can find them in the underground trading market." "Where is the altar arranged?" "The staff in the factory area is complex and highly mobile. The workers go to work during the day and have no time to wander around at night. If they rent a suitable room, no one will care even if there is some movement inside. The Son of God needs a mother body as a container for his descent. He can find a girl over there, and there is a missing person over there. Except for her family, no one will care. And her family can't take so much time not to make money and waste it on finding her. The biggest problem is that once the altar is opened, there will definitely be some signs and visions, which will be noticed by the extraordinary of the church. How can we hide it? Sirius felt that the task of welcoming the Son of God was really difficult. Or should he write to Mr. Z and ask him to provide some help? No, Mr. Z will think that I am stupid and incompetent, a useless subordinate. What's the use of keeping it? Sirius shuddered for a while, and became even more attentive to find materials in the market. In the evening, Hinez came to visit Sirius again, and saw the two locked themselves in the living room again, and the servants turned a blind eye. After closing the door, Haynes spoke first. Sirius, I went to the antiquities market again today, and I heard from the boss who sold me the notes before that there are strangers asking who has recently received ancient books from the quaternary epoch. Although they pretended to be lovers of antiquities, their goals were too clear, and they were unfamiliar. Those bosses suspected what they were looking for. Maybe someone who recently collected the stolen goods was found by the original owner. You said, did they come to find this Antigonus family notebook? Hearing this, Sirius thought for a while and said, maybe the secret order came here. Both of them were silent, and then Sirius said, let's hurry up and translate the rest of the content, and then we have to find a way to get rid of this notebook. The people of the esoteric order are very dangerous. Resolved, the two became more and more involved in translating notes. My sister gave birth to a cute baby, and my mother was very happy. But she turned around and reprimanded me, urging me to get married quickly and give birth to an heir. It's really annoying. The diviner's potion didn't bring any major changes to my body, and I digested it very quickly. I'll try to be promoted in a while. Sequence 8 Joker Adult Hornage's Grey Goat. I went to see His Majesty the Emperor today. I feel that His Majesty is getting more and more crazy. As a diehard supporter of His Majesty, if it fails, the family will probably be liquidated by the victor. The Hornages Mountains are the source of the empire created by the Dark Emperor, where the splendor and history of the Solomon Empire are located. Perhaps, there are not only the legacy of the Dark Emperor, but also the hope for the revival of the Antigonus family. In the kingdom of night, life and death coexist. Here, when they are alive, they devoutly believe in the Mother of Heaven, thanking the Mother for giving them a peaceful life. When their lives come to an end, they will devote themselves to the Mother's kingdom of God. There, they start a new life. They believe that they have not passed away, they have stepped into reincarnation and gained new life. The kingdom of God of the Mother of Heaven is on that high peak, where there are tall and magnificent palaces, and her people get the happiness she promised in the kingdom of God. Wu-A steam train sprayed white mist and whistled, and slowly stopped into the platform with a bang. Countless guests of different clothes and ages poured out of the open car door, like running water, suddenly sprayed out of the car, and then turned into a trickle and ran in different directions. A young man with black hair and brown eyes came out of the train station with a small black suitcase. His face is quite handsome, with a full forehead and a straight face. He wears round gold-rimmed glasses, covering his long and narrow eyes. The corners of his mouth are slightly raised. At first glance, he seems to be smiling politely. This man is very arrogant and seems to look down on everyone. He is not from Tianjin, so he has no fixed property here. He went straight into a luxurious hotel, opened a room and stayed there. He has just been promoted to the swindler of Sequence 8. In order to play the role, he decided to plan a large-scale scam. The reason why he came to Tianjin, on the one hand, is because it is only a small town in Lone, and the official beyonder has limited power. On the other hand, he has a friend who lives in Tianjin, and he is a beyonder of the audience pathway. Perhaps can give some help on this scam. Yu reading www.yuuganju.com. In order to complete the translation of the Antigonus family notes as soon as possible, Sirius went to the Deville Library during the day and tried to borrow some more materials about the Hornages Mountains. Unfortunately, since he has not returned the dictionary and other journal books he borrowed last time, he cannot borrow the books he wants this time. However, the library does not prohibit people from reading books directly in the library. Passing by the bookshelf of geology and geography books, Sirius suddenly thought that he could find some books related to the Hornages Mountains, but found that a person was already standing in front of the bookshelf. The man was flipping through a book with colored pages, and since he couldn't see the cover and spine, Sirius had no idea what he was looking at. According to Sirius' character, as a successful businessman, in this case, he would go to say hello to the other party and get to know him, but his mind is now looking for reference books and translating the notes as soon as possible, so he didn't say hello. No attempt was made to get acquainted with this handsome young man. Sirius didn't care about this person, but the young man with round glasses turned his eyes away from the page. Sirius found a book called The Geological Survey of the Hornages Mountains, flipped through it a few times, and found that it was all geological speculation about the formation process of this mountain range across the northern continent, and the mountain range's impact on the formation and economy of surrounding cities. Theories of influence of development. Sirius put down the books and searched the geology and geography bookshelf for a while. Several books or journals obviously related to the Hornages Mountains did not contain what he wanted to see. Sirius had no choice but to go to the shelf of archaeology books according to the original plan, looking for historical research related to the Quaternary.